Hey guys, it's Coffee. Just doing Leakfinder. This is for 60s and 100s reg. We're just going to be looking at some of the spots, seeing how we can, maybe find some leaks, talk about the play, talk about the villains. We'll just get started. So far everything's been standard. Finally, we have our HUD pop up. So yeah, certainly opening Jack 2 suited. I do think there are options for maybe opening at 45. I know Skywalker does it, but min raising is fine. Yeah, I'm folding 4-2 as well. Yep, opening 6-3. I know that some people tend to fold this. I think that is too nitty. Versus the population, we do very well opening almost everything. I think there are arguments for folding maybe 7-2 off, 8-2 off, maybe even 9-2, 9-3 off. Those kind of hands that have no connectivity. But 6-3 does have some connectivity. I think it's worth opening. I even think that you can even limp it. I really think that open folding it is on the too tight side. And fine, we just fold to the 3-bet. That's easy. Queen 3 suited. Yeah, I think that this is a hand where we can strongly consider 3-betting. It's between 3-betting and flatting, really. We certainly should not be folding this versus the population. It is a profitable hand out of position. Folding it is too tight. You're just not making as much money as playing it. I prefer probably to 3-bet it. If I am 3-betting, though, I don't like this size very much. So when we're 3-betting this, we need to think about the fact that getting pre-flop folds is a good thing, and getting 4-bet is bad. And I found through population analysis that the smaller our sizing, the more we tend to induce 4-bets, and the more we tend to get flat. We don't get as many folds, that is, when we c-bet to 3-bet to 90. And so I much prefer a sizing of 100. I find it's really not that much more, so you don't lose as much to a 4-bet. I mean, I think arguably, we could say, obviously the more we bet, the better, so we should bet 160. Well, obviously that's going to lead to some terrible situations when we get 4-bet. However, by betting 100 rather than 90, we get a little bit of the best of both worlds. I do kind of subscribe to price point philosophy. This is something I talk a lot about in my one-on-one coaching sessions, that, there's a reason that stores sell candy bars for 99 cents and not $1, or 99 pence and not a pound. And the reason is that they sell more candy bars that way. And everyone knows it. I mean, we all go to a store and we see that candy bar for 99 cents. We know it's really $1. But somehow, subconsciously, we still buy it more. The real estate market does this as well. Houses are priced a certain way to give off certain images. And I think that while we're readless, while our villain can't exploit the fact that we might be using our sizing in certain ways, we should be taking advantage of this. We should be using every tool at our disposal to maximize our EV, and this includes these psychological tools. And so I really think that by 3-betting to 100 rather than 90, we do get more folds pre, we get 4-bet less, our range looks stronger, it's just win-win-win. And the extra 10 chips that we lose when we get 4-bet, that's really not that big a deal, especially since the population 4-bets very rarely. That's actually what makes 3-betting this hand pre-profitable in the first place. It's not all the folds we get pre, it's the fact that players 4-bet rarely and then give up a lot post. They tend to play fit fold post. All right, so let's get looking at how this hand ends up playing. So this is kind of a funny spot because we do end up flopping top pair. Oftentimes with Queen 3 suited, we don't get hit that good of a flop. Here we have a good flop, and so we're looking just to bet get it. We can't bet fold this flop, even though when we get raised, we're not actually in that good a shape. There are better Queen X, obviously. There are some traps, etc. But obviously we do get it in versus worse hands if we get it in here. He will be probably shoving over us with draws, other Queen X. And so at this point, I mean, we kind of need to think again about our sizing. What are we trying to accomplish, and what can our sizing do for us? So, I mean, I think that let's look at the pros and cons of the smaller sizing. Overall, I mean, 65 is something that I'd be using with a lot of my range in this spot, or less even, because villains tend to play fit fold, because I'm just looking to make a cheap bluff. But because we have top pair, we can analyze this from a little bit bigger point of view. The only benefit, suddenly, to betting small is induction. If we induce lots of loose raises by betting small, that's awesome. But is this the kind of board where villains are likely to raise us that loose? Like, obviously he's going to probably be raising us with things like open-end straight draws or flush draws, but I don't think those are going to be too size dependent. I think we can use other sizings and still get value from them. And I think that it's those are still hands that oftentimes people will be flatting. And in fact, we give the villain a great great option to flat with a 6-7 type hand or a flush draw. or any of those other kind of hands, because, you know, he's getting a great price. He's in position. It's not going to be hard to play it on future streets. And so I really think this is an opportunity to bet bigger. We're bet calling anyways, so it's not like we need to keep a bluff cheap. We're not losing anything when we get raised. And so I would be looking here to bet bigger, and I would bet probably around, probably like something like 99. You know, we still want to get action. I still don't think it's worth it to bet like 100 or more, because we will get raised less. We will get fewer hands that call us. But we do want to try to extract as much value from this spot as possible. We're not bluffing anymore. We have top pair. And so we really want to start looking to extract value, set up stacks for future street action. I really like 99. Again, candy bar. Let's try to get as much action as possible, but get as many chips in the same process. I think a bet of 90 or 95 is also very good in this spot. But we certainly should be betting more than 65 with top pair on this kind of board. There's so many hands that we can get in with. And when we get raised here, we should just shove. It is a clear shove. There's so much value to be had from weaker hands. It is a little suspicious. I actually find that this is very often a very strong hand when they raise not all in your small c-bet. That being said, there are still flush draws and 8x and 5x. This is fine. We should be shoving for value. We're quite far ahead of a range. And we can't flat either because we're out of position. So this is good. We shove, and it's a surprising fold. I don't expect this fold very often from the population, but we get it. So it's good to know that sometimes the population will bluff raise in that spot. That's a clear fold. Well played. We do have to notice now that, you know, he has been 3-betting us quite a bit. We can look over at the 3-bet stat, and wow, that's quite a bit of a 3-bet stat. Mostly I'd be looking now to limp more. That would be my adjustment. I think that while we don't have a great sample, we have seen him 3-bet 2 out of 3 times, and so we can put him on having a wider 3-bet range than average. The average 3-betting range at this depth is around 20%. So seeing 67, even over 3 hands, means that it will be wider than average. I would put him at around 30%, maybe even, of a 3-bet range now, given the statistics we have. And so I would limp this. This is a limped, you know, this is a spot where we can adjust. 9-7 is a hand that will have a similar expectation in a limped and min-raise pot by default. But given that villain's 3-betting so much, we can make a pretty quick adjustment. You know, this is what Bayesian statistics can sometimes let us do. Knowing the population's tendency towards 3-betting and knowing that he's 3-bet this much means we can adjust his 3-bet up, and we should start making adjustments with hands that are on the close side, where expectation, min-raising, and flatting are similar. This is 17.5 big blinds deep. Limping 9-7 is going to have a quite good expectation for sure by default. And suddenly, when we know we're getting 3-bet a decent amount, min-raising isn't going to be quite as good. So limping here looks better. All right, that's standard. And here, obviously, we are just min-raise getting it. There is no folding. King-Jack, 16 big blinds deep. That is too tight. King-10, arguably, versus the population, we can make the fold sometimes. Clearly, versus this guy, since he's been 3-betting more than average, King-Jack is a spot just to get it in. And I think I probably would shove over a non-all 3-bet. I mean, he's been making these hundreds a lot. It is probably a spot where we can just shove for value, likely. There's not going to be much of a folding range at that point. King-Jack has decent equity. It's pretty close to flatting and maybe seeing a flop, but it's probably not going to be too big a deal. All right, and so here we're looking at ace-10, and I would just shove here for value. I don't think it's going to be better to raise not all in. The reason being is, you know, the population just doesn't 4-bet much. The reason to raise not all in here is to induce 4-bets. We're 15 big blinds deep. It just looks suspicious to raise not all in. Just ship it for pure value. Nice. Well played. And so this is a spot where we are not 13 big blinds deep. We are 13 big blinds deep, 260 chips, and with ace-7. And so now we're looking at a spot where min-raising has some justification because villain is 3-betting more than average. That being said, I think I would still open shove here. The reason being is that I still expect villain to flat a decent amount. Although we haven't seen flats, it is a spot where min-raising is fine because of the reads we have, and only because of them. I think that's the only thing that makes min-raising here close rather than open shoving. It's the fact that we haven't seen villain flat, and we have seen villain 3-bet, and we probably still think he's 3-betting a little bit more than the population, although he hasn't 3-bet in a while, so we're not sure. But that being said, ace-7 is really on that bottom side anyways. Like, it's really not that often that we want to induce with ace-7 because villain's flat so much. It doesn't play that well in when we get flatted, and villains on average don't 3-bet much. So, it's close. I think that this is a fine spot to make an adjustment. If we're going to make it, it's with, again, the hands that are close. I would much prefer if we had ace 8 or ace 9. I think that's very justifiable to min-raise call them. Ace 7, I think I would still probably open shove, just because our reads are limited, and we don't really have reads at this depth. I do think that many players play quite differently at different depths, and so the reads we have at deeper stacks really have to be discounted quite a bit. So even though we had some decent reads, 6 hands isn't that big, but it's a decent sample, and we had some pretty extreme tendencies in those 6 hands of no flatting and 3-betting 40% of the time. But again, I think that given the fact that we don't have any reads at 7 to 13, we should kind of revert more towards the population average. I think I would min-raise call ace 8 off, but I think I would still open shove ace 7. But it's close. I think min-raise calling here is fine. Obviously there's still some value when we get flatted, although I do think that we probably get more value getting a fold pre from a lot of the hands that would flat us. So here we're in another kind of close spot. I'm shoving this as well. This is a shove we can make versus the population read lows. Versus some players, though, I think it still can be better to flat. Many players at this depth will raise something like less than 40% of hands. It will raise around 30% of hands. That's average. An average player min raises about 30% of hands 12 big blinds deep. Again, we have some reads already. He has been raising probably more than average. So I think shoving here is fine. And I have done some calculations, and shoving king 7 suited here is profitable, even versus the average villain. They'll raise 30% of hands, but they will still fold quite a bit to shove. So I do think shoving here is best. And given the reads that he's opening more than average, since we know versus the average player it's profitable to shove it, he's opening more than average, it should make it a very profitable shove. I think shoving here is best. Well played. And we get coolered when he flips over queens. But we get there, and that's always fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this Leakfinder, guys. I hope it gave you some food for thought. If you have any questions or anything else, feel free to leave a comment or just send me an email at coffee@gmail.com. Cheers!